My name is Tim League, and I'm sitting here with Mr. John Marshall, who is the star and assistant director and grip and gaffer and everything else that might happen to be a part of the magic and wonder that is Roar. And we're going to be talking about the behind the scenes, the making of Roar in this DVD commentary.
Hello.
Hi, John. So we're starting off right in the very beginning, and it's my understanding that these are the first shots and the only shots that were really shot in Africa, the pickup shots that came up later. Can you tell us a little bit about going back to Africa and what your involvement was in these shots?
Well, I was supposed to ride a motorcycle amongst a herd of elephants, but the elephants wound up to be in a game preserve, so we couldn't do it. So I was just kind of crew in the Africa part. But what the goal was, because the whole opening sequence, all of this, is shot in Africa, and you don't even ever question the fact that you're not in Africa because you are in Africa. And then after this whole opening sequence and everything, when you cut into where when you go on to where our animals are in California, you never question it because you've got these magnificent openings with giraffes and hundreds of water buffalo and zebra, and so it really sets everything up. And then we revisit it partway through the movie, which you'll see a couple scenes which we'll talk about. It's just Dad riding a bicycle to the way to the airport, but so all this sets it up, and now this is at the preserve in Acton, California, just north of Los Angeles.
Maybe talk a little bit about your brother that doesn't actually appear in the film, Joel, because it's my understanding that Joel was really instrumental in designing and set decorating and matching the look and feel of the preserve to what it was supposed to look like in Africa.
Yeah, he was the production designer, and he also had a lot of other problems and tasks, which is we started shooting in, the film takes place over a day and a half, and because it took 5 years to film, and we started in the fall, the leaves were kind of yellowing, so he had to paint them partially green, and then in the springtime he had to paint them partially yellow. And so he was constantly doing a lot of that kind of stuff, but he worked on designing the house, but he didn't really like acting, and then also he was not fond of the lions and tigers. He was more in charge of the flamingos and the ostriches and other animals. Everybody else in the family loved the big cats.
So now we see Noel, and he's tending to the medical needs of a small village in Africa. Tell us a little bit about maybe Noel's initial vision for this film. What were his inspirations? What did he want this movie to be? And what actually is Noel's job out here in Africa? His fictional character.
Well, his fictional character is he's a scientist with some veterinarian knowledge, and that's why he's just tending to small wounds in the Maasai tribe here. So he's studying the behavior of big cats in Africa, which explains why we have tigers in the film, because tigers are not indigenous to Africa. So, but he's studying the behavior of big cats in the wild. So he feels that he has to live amongst them and be one of them to really study the behavior and everything else. And then in the basic overall, then he has the family come over to visit him, and I'll explain that as it goes along. But in his big vision, Dad and Tippy went over. Tippy would do movies in Africa for a couple years in a row, and they saw a house that had been overrun by lions, a warden's house, and they said, well, that's kind of cool. It was very interesting. It was a tourist attraction. And coming home, they said, wow, wouldn't that be nice if we could do that? And we'll use our family, and and practically everybody in the family had done acting. Melanie had done a couple movies by then. Or no, Melanie hadn't done any movies by then, but she was leaning towards acting. I had done a lot of acting. And so we all said, yeah, that'd be great, because we thought we'd use trained animals. And so, and we loved the idea of playing with lions. But we interviewed a bunch of Hollywood lions, and there weren't any that the trainers said that you couldn't get 2 lions together. And Dad's vision was that we would have at least 10 lions, because you don't need to make it interesting. You couldn't have 2 or 3, which is all the trainers would ever come up with together. And then they basically told us that we should probably get our own if we wanted to have a group of 10 or 15. And so we started raising them in Sherman Oaks, and we got our first cub when I was about 15. And then we bought this place, and then it evolved, and we built the set over a period of about 5 or 6 years of prep. And then during that time period, we accumulated a lot of animals, and then a lot of them were born there. So that the height, we had about 150 lions. But so now Dad is coming down, and he's approaching where he lives and where he's studying them. And this is Togar, who's the rogue lion.
So what's the backstory on Togar? So you know all of these lions personally. I mean, you raised them from cubs, or you inherited them from other.
And if you don't know
folks.
the difference, if you don't know which one is which, and one's trying to bite you and one's good and one's bad, then knowing the difference between which one is really, really important.
So Togar in the film is made out to be something of the villain, not really the villain, but a tough lion, somebody you don't want to mess with. Who's the
But
alpha.
yeah, he's been ostracized, and he's a loner and he's a rogue, but he kind of wants, because he wants to get back into a group, but he has to go in and to get his food, because the lionesses usually hunt for the males, and then the male goes in and then when he's done eating, then the females eat. But he doesn't have anybody to hunt for him, so he has to do his own. So he's trying to get into this, but he's causing fights.
And where did Togar come from? Where did you guys pick up Togar?
Well, originally an animal called the original Togar was part of a group called the Wild Bunch, which was I don't even know. That happened when I was doing some other project, and I don't know why we got him. I think it was just for breeding purposes, because nobody could go in with him. So we actually never really used the real Togar. We just used his name because we needed a lion that was nice to be Togar, and we just put blood on him, and you can make a great. And later on, in some of those scenes where he looks very, very ferocious, he is really, really ferocious, and he would kill you. But he was a really nice lion as long as he wasn't with a female nearby. And so when we'd remove the female, then he was nice. But when we needed him to be bad, we put a female nearby him, and then we'd pretend to take the female away from him, and then he'd want to kill you.
So now we're seeing an entry onto the screen. One of my favorite characters of Roar, Mativo. So Mativo obviously wasn't part of the family in Sherman Oaks. So when you were getting acclimated to the Lions, tell us about how he got involved in the production and his relationship with the Lions.
But he is an actor. We interviewed a number of Kenyan actors, and we chose him. But we also, when we were having people that we were thinking about using in the film, we'd bring them out and see how they were with the animals, if they were afraid, because it was a commitment. And once you started shooting, they had to commit to the whole thing. But he was the only one that said, he said, I'll do whatever you want. And he's great in all these scenes. He says, I'll do anything you want with the cats. But unlike you guys, I don't want to be their friend. I don't want to live with them. I don't want to sleep with them. He said, in the wilds where I was raised, he said, the lions are over there, and people are over there, and they don't cross paths. They're wild. And so after you're done with the scene, I will go back and I'll wait until the next scene, and then you come and you tell me what to do. And he was the only one of the main stars of the film that didn't get bitten really badly and go to the hospital.
He had a pretty good system.
Yeah, he was, in hindsight, he was the smart guy.
What's going on with his jacket? It seems like there's actually some genuine interest in the jacket during the scene, and they're sort of tossing it back and forth.
It was just the Lions like to fight over stuff like that, and so it just became. I mean, and a lot of these things, we didn't plan a lot of these things, and they weren't scripted. So I love in this scene, and I used to do this to people because it kind of messes with your mind. Dad's sitting there going, "Oh, Johnny's okay," because you never have to worry about Johnny. Who knows the difference? But can you tell that's Johnny versus the 7 others? And Dad saying, Johnny's okay. Oh, you got to watch out for Mark. And it's like, well, which one's Mark? And
yeah, I know. There's a whole little insider baseball type of vibe to this scene about like there's maybe more backstory.
It really unnerves you. So, and then this is Johnny coming in, and so he's great. He was named after me, and I raised him.
So you raised that lion from a cub?
Yes, and so he was great. Johnny never hurt anyone. But you did have to know the difference.
And so now we're getting into a moment where the lions are starting to get a little bit ferocious. This is kind of the first scene in the theater where people are really starting to get
Yeah, I love
emotional.
this is the scene that I used to show every girl that I wanted to go out with. I'd say, "This is this movie I worked on," and so I call this clip "He's Crazy."
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that. So, your dad is obviously at the helm of this grand experiment in filmmaking. What's going on here? Because it's almost as if the action intensifies really seriously here, and it seems to me, as a bystander, this is an incredibly dangerous scene. Is it dangerous, or
It's dangerous later on, but not right now.
Okay.
So this is the setup, and you really have to pay a lot of attention to get you have to gotten already the fact that you've got this rogue lion, and Dad's explaining that Robbie is the leader, and he has to make sure if that rogue lion Togar comes in, Robbie has to fight with him and establish dominance, and if he gets beaten or killed by Togar, then he's lost everything. So he has to be the strongest. And so Dad's explaining to Motivo that we have to help Robbie, and Motivo's like, "Get out of here! Don't count on me." But so this is a big part of the setup, and Motivo is his friend and on his side. But there's a grant committee that comes in, which she'll come on in a couple minutes, and it unfolds better. But this kind of sets everything up, all of this explanations.
And so shooting this film is Jan de Bont. This is his first American production that he worked on. He had some fame in Europe, but this began his American career. Did he have any experience shooting wild animals? And if not, like, what sort of preparation did you guys give him to be ready to do this shoot?
He didn't, to my knowledge, he didn't have any experience with animals, but we got him into the union because of this film. We got him his green card, and he was amazing. I mean, this does not look like it was shot as long ago as it was. But Jan was probably there for 4 months of prep, because I remember we had the set built, and Jan, the first thing he said, we need to put a spiral staircase in. Oh, well, we should have done that when we built it. It's kind of, and they go, and the spiral staircase has to hold up to 40 lions running around and chasing people on it. And why do we need a spiral staircase? And it's for the geography, because the house looks the same from every angle if you don't have something different. Mm-hmm. So Jan came in and was instrumental in a lot of those things.
Okay, cool. I'm curious that you have so many lions on set. What's the feeding process like? What do you have to do to make sure that the lions are maintained while all this production's going on?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you say wrap, and then all the lions go back to the areas that they're in. They're all in different compounds, mm-hmm. and the couple guys they take wheelbarrows full of meat. And there's different feeding stations in each compound, because you have to make sure that they all get food. And so they never got fed during the day unless we wanted them to do a particular something or other, and we'd give them treats. But the feeding was always done at the end of the day.
How about during the days in Beverly Glen when you guys were raising the lions over there?
In Sherman Oaks?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I think we fed them twice. When they're young, you have to feed them twice. When they're real young, you have to give them a bottle.
Yeah. Well, how about the poachers here? These are some. It's like an interesting thread through the
right.
Through the
so
narrative.
this is the grant committee, mm-hmm. and they're not. It's not established what they are yet, but they're the people that are supervising and looking at his project, and they think he's crazy, which he is.
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, if you watch really close, there's a guy that ducks down in the back. Mm-hmm. It's one of the handlers, and we didn't. When this movie came out, there was no DVDs. You could freeze frame anything, but you'd see every flaw. So Dad gets bitten right through the hand there. That was like the first or second day of filming. He shakes his hand off, but he comes right back in, and he's gonna break up the fight. And then it comes up again in a second. Hold on, this one lion. He goes after the lion to keep breaking up the fight. The lion turns around and chases him again. Hold on. So right there, he grabs this tree. And if he didn't have that tree branch to shove in that lion's mouth, that lion would have been all over him, and I don't know what would have happened.
And this, how far into filming is this particular scene?
Oh, this is the first or second day.
First or second day.
Because we were trying to film this to show how amazing the film was going to be, to raise more money, because we had already were out of money at this point.
can see. I mean, obviously, you can still see the blood on his hand, and then.
So now this is Togar's got he's got a female back with him, so he's quite happy in that scene.
Okay. And you also see him sort of kind of wrap up his hand. Is that actually him wrapping up his wound, or is that just for movie magic?
Well, that was for continuity because now he didn't plan on getting bitten, but
Right.
once you get bitten, you have to write it into the script.
And how often does this sort of aggressive play happen? on
Usually,
set?
usually this kind of behavior is just when you add a new animal to the group. They have to establish where they fit into the pecking order. So when we'd in order to build a large group, you start with 2 and they figure it out, and then you add the 3rd one and they fight, and so you just keep adding and adding. So that's what we did for the fight with Dad. Now these 3 guys that are in this rowboat,
Yeah.
these were the only. All these people know the animals very well, but those 3 guys were very main handlers for a couple years during the filming. So they were professionals,
Got it.
as professional as we got.
And that was planned for the tiger to
Yes,
to get up in the
absolutely.
boat
This
and
this is
sing it?
all a planned sequence.
Okay. Okay.
And as rehearsed as we ever did. And you can kind of see if you watch real closely, they're like grabbing the tiger, and normal people don't do that. You see them grabbing the ear and
Right.
pulling them back. So those guys were in a lot of danger, but they're professionals, like the family was until we were acting afraid.
Right. Is it more dangerous?
And you can
to be,
see
to be-
tigers in the water are very dangerous,
Yeah.
but if you watch really closely, when their ears are back is when it's really dangerous.
Okay.
If their ears are up, you're not going to get as bitten nearly as bad. Ears back, bad. Tigers, water, bad. Like ears back, both ears back, both cats.
And so the bandaging of the hand is merely film continuity to
Yes.
show that he's going to be having a bandage for the rest of the
Yes.
shoot for the next
Yeah.
couple of weeks. And we did go past, I think, one of the main plot points. It's a very lean plot in the movie, which really can sum down to a missed airport pickup connection. Really,
Yes.
that's the
Well,
essential
we,
plot
we,
device.
we haven't gotten there yet because we don't know. We know the family's coming, but we
Yeah.
don't know. So all this again, professionals, as much as we had, and these were a lot of us knew a lot about animals, but it's just you can't train 150.
Right.
So all you could do is try to teach them not to bite, and you do that by just hitting them in the nose when they bite you.
Now, is that are those actual real cuts, or is that staged?
Staged.
For this one. Okay, this is one of the few staged
Yes,
moments.
yes.
Yeah. Well, since we have a little bit of a pause, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how Tippy and Noel got to know each other in the first place, and how they became a couple.
Oh,
How you guys
well,
became a crazy family.
my real mother and father, they separated, and they had a commercial talent agency. And my mother used to go to New York to take models and then bring them out to LA and put them in commercials. And she discovered Tippy and brought her out here from New York, and then got her a commercial that Hitchcock discovered her in. And then Dad wound up being Tippy's manager, and then they got married. And I mean, Tippy raised me, and I've known Melanie since she was 1. So this is now the family's arrived in Africa, and this guy just said, "Hey, he's not here. You know, you better take this bus, otherwise you have to spend the night." So that's why we're on our way. We get there.
And in the yellow shirt is your brother Jerry also.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Jerry and his range of responsibilities on the film.
Well, Jerry and Melanie were both very young when we started, about 17. Jerry lived out there for a long time, so he was very good with the animals. He mostly liked post-production, so he was involved a little bit with that. He didn't seem to have the knack for. I like to. I'm very inquisitive and I like learning and stuff. So I went into all different. I mean, and the way you introduced me, I was not the grip or the. I worked in those departments,
Yeah.
but Jerry didn't seem to do that as much.
What do I do now? Just stand up to them. Don't let them get away with anything. You gotta let them see how strong you are.
And so again, Motivo didn't want to live it, but he's fine with the animals, doesn't get bitten.
And when you're setting up for a shot like that, I mean, you've got some 25, 30 animals into the house. What's the process of sort of corralling them to set that stage before the camera get rolling? And how many takes does something like that take?
Oh, you either just you get 20 crew guys and everybody says go get a bunch of chains and you walk them in there, or you just show them a bunch of meat and you say, hey, we got food, and then you run them in the house and you close the door and you leave them in there until you're ready to shoot. But typically we would try to not do too many takes because it does take a long time. Once you let them out in front of the house, the area in front of the house was huge. It could take you, even if you had 20 guys, it could take you an hour and a half.
Noel looks particularly beat in this scene. He's sweaty, he's dirty, he's bleeding.
Well, he's supposed to because he's been knocked on the ground, he's been bitten, he went into the water, he did the tigers, so he's had a rough morning.
Yeah.
And I love this scene because and we used to do this when we were living with them, and the lions talk to you and they're really vocal. And so if you know what to do, you can kind of get them to do things, and that's what Dad does great in this.
How closely does this house that you guys built for this production mimic the one that they saw on safari?
I never saw a picture of the house, so I don't know, but Tippy describes it in a documentary that I did, The Making of Roar, and in her book as a Portuguese-style house, so I don't know what, I guess that's what this is.
And is this house still standing today?
No, but it was typically a movie set is not meant to last, but we had to build this really strong because it had to have 50 lions on the roof running around, so it was very strong. But a flood happened and destroyed the house, and structurally we had to do some stuff to put it back together. But it lasted almost 35 years, and I begged Tippy to keep it up as long as we could in the hopes of eventually somebody wanting to put this film out. And then I was hoping to still have it standing for press things that we could go out and show people where the thing was filmed. But it took a lot longer than planned to get this film out.
How much of a script was there when you guys are shooting? Because there's lots of conversations that that happen that seem pretty natural. Was it a pretty well fleshed out script, or is it sort of day by day?
It had a loose structure, but it was scripted. But the animals share writing credits,
right?
Because so in this scene, it's not in the film, but Dad gets bitten in the neck and gets dragged out. Donnie bites him in the neck and drags him out of the bathtub. And I was the only one. All the handlers were afraid to ever get in the middle of a scene and blow a take because Dad would reprimand them not very nicely. But I happened to be in there because Jan was hand-holding a camera and I was doing safety for him. And I was right there and I saw the thing starting to happen. I just screamed bloody murder at these lions, and they were in a confined space and they just flew out of there. They opened the door to the outside and all got out of there because they were so afraid that I would reprimand them. And Dad's got blood dripping down his neck, but he runs out and you have to reprimand a cat when they bite you. And so in the making of, and I didn't know this because I was inside figuring out a couple other problems, but Dad then ran out to tell Donnie that he should never do that again and hit him in the nose and reprimanded him. But this group of Japanese investors was walking by, and they look up and they hear the commotion on the second floor, and here's their director and one of the stars with blood dripping down his neck, running naked on the porch, chasing this lion, going, "Donnie, you son of a bitch!"
So what did that mean for the investment? Did they double down on the
No,
investment?
they did. Those people walked away. That wasn't a good day for investing.
Well, I know that the production had some financial difficulties at multiple times. Can you give us a little backstory as to the, how it was financed initially, and what how you managed to keep it? It ended up being a very expensive film to make, much more than you originally thought.
It was originally $3 million in 9 months. It turned into 5 years and $17 million. We got the first $1 million came from EMI and Toho Kashinsha Film Corporation. Well, that $1 million was gone, like I said, by day 1 or 2 because we owed so much money from in the prep that we were behind. So we were always behind on fundraising, and we went through private individuals. There's one guy who's passed away now. He put in $2.5 million of his own money. He's come out. I used to go pick him up at the airport in Agua Dulce, a local landing strip, because he flew his own plane, and he'd come out every 3 weeks to give us payroll. And then Panavision gave us the cameras for free. They'd never done that before. I don't think they've done it since. MGM did all the processing for free, so we just begged, borrowed, and stolen from everywhere to do it. And then all of the family as a whole, we had 4 homes and some property in out by Magic Mountain, and then the preserve. And throughout this process, all 4 homes, 2 in Beverly Hills, 1 and 2 in Sherman Oaks, all 4 of them got sold. The property got sold. Everything got sold, and nobody had a nickel by the time we were done. And so that financially, it was not very good at the time.
And your dad, Noel, was a producer on The Exorcist, too.
Oh, all that money went into it also.
Okay.
And then he started a commercial production company that was very successful. Well, he bankrupted that because he kept taking all the money from there to feed this, because he thought this was a better investment. And
well, it got done. It got done.
yeah, we did. We finished the film, yes. Okay, so in this scene, and it's not in the theatrical release, but it might be in the Blu-ray, which is being done now. And you guys are watching the Blu-ray, so you'll know. There's a scene where Dad gets bitten in the leg, and it's a blood-curdling scream, and the lion yanks him off stage and is going to finish the job. And I'm hoping to put that we took it out of the English versions, but it was left in the German and Japanese version. And the film did very well in Germany and Japan. And I think that they marketed it as a really scary film, and it was marketed in English-speaking countries as a family film. And as you know, Tim, because you were the one that brought it out of obscurity and said it's the most dangerous film ever made, and it's dangerous to watch it. Well, that's the way it should always have been marketed. But in 1981, it was a F-U-R-R, ferocious comedy. It is not a ferocious comedy. It is a movie that is really scary in a lot of places.
I like it that it's both. You know, I like it that on the surface it's a Disney True Life Adventure type of a movie, and it's a loving family. It's a very clean film. It's a very family film, but then there's just this undercurrent of danger and suspense all throughout it. And it's really singularly unique, and that's really what I love about it, that it can be both things.
But what Dad tried to do, and he was very smart about it, he tried to make it, you don't know what year it takes place, because there's no car that tells you, or the bus, or any vehicle that tells you when it was filmed. You can, of course, tell with Melanie and Tippy's age, but in 20 years, nobody's going to know who Tippy and Melanie are. So if you change their names, it could be anybody, and it could have been shot 5 years before. And the clothes don't give it away. The Dad, we tried to pick like hipper clothes, and Dad goes, nope, you got to pick nondescript, boring clothes. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that even kind of gives it away is Melanie wanted to wear a halter top.
Yeah, Melanie does sort of seem period attire.
But and it wasn't even because I guess this is a good time to mention the fact that Melanie wasn't in the film in the first 3 months because she didn't want to she decided she didn't want to do the film when we were getting ready to start. And so we picked her best friend, Patsy, and because she was the next best with the Lions, and she'd stayed over a lot and knew the Lions. So we shot with Patsy until about December, and then we had a hiatus. And then when we got together all for Christmas, Melanie, felt bad. She said, "Oh, I wish I'd have done the movie." And Dad goes, "We'll just fire Patsy and we'll redo some shots, and I'll point out some shots throughout the movie where you can actually see Patsy if you freeze frame." So Patsy was fired, and I've never heard word one from her ever. And I actually now I have it on my list to call her and see if I can find her on Facebook or something. You can find anybody now.
Does she still make the credits, or is she sort of stripped away?
Well, no, she never got any credit, never mentioned in any press things when it was released. I didn't mention that it wasn't even Melanie until I did the making of documentary. And I told Tippy, I said, "Tippy, now with DVDs, people are might spot this. We need to, and if this movie comes out, Patsy might come out of the woodwork, and PR people will tell you, always get ahead of something if it's, so you don't hide anything." So we're very, truthful about everything, and that was the truth.
Did Patsy have any scenes with the lions themselves, or was
Oh,
it more
yeah.
of the airport stuff?
No,
Okay.
no. The airport was shot in year 2, I think.
Okay.
So the first scene that the family did is the coming down the stairs in the rowboat, and I'll show you the sequence, and I'll point out those couple of shots. But Patsy was mostly in those.
This is actually a moment of the film when I was viewing it for the first time that I have this like sickening dread in my stomach, because you know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, you start seeing there's a leopard and the family doesn't see it, and this is when you kind of are interjecting, you know, and we're very stupid. I mean,
And
clearly.
you,
Oh, this is funny. This gets the biggest laugh everywhere, except not with this generation that's watching it now because they don't know of Tippy and the Birds, but 34 years ago in Australia, it played the big laughs.
And was that a willful moment, making sure there was a bird scene with Tippy just as a
Yes, there were
homage?
two sparrows that the editing department, the assistant editor had raised these things, and we used I forgot what their names were, but
What's also interesting, you know, about this movie is it is a ferocious comedy in a way. There's a lot of real slapsticky type moments that get entered into the script. There is a lot of humor in relation to the lines, and even the dialogue itself. There you see some you know pretty.
oh, when Dad came up,
clanger jokes
there's
coming through.
there's a scene with it that you'll see in a couple of minutes about the zebra, and so Dad tells us all. He says, okay, so in this scene, and somebody has to say, look what the cat dragged in. And Melanie and Jerry and I look at each other and we all shake our heads and we go, we are not saying that. And so Tippy would always get stuck with whatever, and she got the biggest laughs in many countries.
I guess she's married. She's married to Noel.
Yeah, she had to,
She has to
you
lay
know.
the joke on when nobody else wants to.
Where could he be?
So again, our two little trained sparrows. The animals that didn't bite anyone in the film, of the very few.
Running up in all the windows.
That's a particularly dumb idea because Dad has explained that you keep the lions out of those rooms. But of course, the family hasn't seen any animals, so they think that maybe Dad has the lions, you know, someplace else. We don't know.
Honey,
So when they were on safari, was that the first time that Tippy got involved with fair treatment of animals and the stopping of hunting and the stopping
Yeah, they
of
both-
collecting of
they both-
ivory? So
yeah,
that
they-
when the inspiration started for this?
Yes, yeah, because it was getting very bad very quick, and that's when it first started to come into the forefront. So this is they've killed a zebra. This is when the family first sees that. Wow, and we waited for like a year and a half for a zebra to die of natural causes, and it never did. And finally, a donkey died. And so my brother, as the production designer and art director, he had to paint this donkey with shoe polish. So if you look closely, you can see that it didn't die very well, and it ran with all the blood got mixed in with the shoe polish. But this is, and it died of natural causes, but this is really, and they're fighting over this because this is what they like eating.
Yeah. I mean, this is a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, and a lot of this blood's always fake, you know.
So a really important question: when did you lose the curly hair?
Probably in my 30s, and then I just kept keeping it short because it was. So this is, I love this. This is Cleopatra. Boomer was the nicest lion. What lion would let a leopard just take the food and then he'd kind of look up at her and go, well, what? But you know, the animals weren't hungry. You know, we always kept them well fed, and we treated the animals wonderfully. I mean, the animals got treated better than the people did.
Is it more dangerous to be shooting around lions when they are feeding? I mean, does that add a level of complexity to things?
If you get anywhere near their food, it can be very dangerous. But as long as you stay away from their food, then it's not too bad because you can predict that they're really not going to come bite you when they've got food there. They'd rather eat.
Any backstory behind the portrait of John F. Kennedy on the wall?
Dad liked Kennedy.
Okay.
And again, Kennedy was 20 or 25 years before this film was made, timeless.
Right.
Because Kennedy will be an icon in 100 years.
That's such a beautiful shot. I love that shot.
Yeah,
I love that still from the movie.
And we just had animals everywhere, and the shots took so long.
Like this sequence of, this is a pretty intensive action sequence here. How long of a shooting schedule to get this completely wrapped up?
That was probably 4 to 5 weeks. This was probably in year 2 or something, so we had gotten a little bit, picked up the pace a little bit. We had a very slow start. The scene with when we run down the stairs, which I'll point out to you, that took 6 weeks to film. And I remember I went to Dad and Jan and I said, I don't know much about production, but I'm good at math. And I said, with 6 weeks and 1/8 of a page, this is going to take 29.6 years to film. And I said, we got to either make the movie just about that or pick up the pace. So in this scene, and I asked Jan, I said, Jan, do I look sweaty? And he'd go, no. There was a 10 kHm. The locker was so hot to try to get the light through the little louvers that you couldn't touch the metal. It would burn you. So I was like sweating bullets. But then to try to get this lion, after he dumps this, to try to get him to go and look through the louvers, I'm in the locker.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to talk to them, but we filmed for a day or two. Well, they wouldn't look in the locker like this. It's very difficult. So we wound up, and it is not mean by any means, but we had a little pig, and I would just hold the pig in there with me, and I'd shake the pig, and he'd squeal a little bit, and then the lion would get interested. And then the pig just went on to have a good time at a friend's place. So this was just a funny scene, and we had to clean up the house.
Yeah.
We couldn't have it bloody for the rest of the movie, so that justified cleaning it up. And this is a particularly stupid scene, but again, the family isn't particularly intelligent in real life for doing the film, and in the movie we're even.
So what makes this a particularly stupid scene?
Who hides in a refrigerator? The lions hit the front of the refrigerator and you're dead because it's sealed. So Jerry has to keep the refrigerator open because otherwise he's locked in it, which is why he can't totally shut it. And they aren't designed to totally shut from the inside. But it was also, anytime you hide from them, when they find you, they try to claw at you and bite you. And so that's what he keeps doing here. And again, Jerry was in there for probably a day and a half, and you just keep thinking every time you wonder if that's going to be the time that the claws come out and grab you.
It's wonderful the way it works out, though. I mean, it's just the interaction between the lion and Jerry. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, well, that's what we did in a lot of scenes. We would try to set it up where the animals would continue to do it and would like to do the things.
Now, I've been told that once you're on the ground in the presence of lions, that's a dangerous spot to be in. You guys end up there a lot. Jerry just ended up on the ground.
Yeah, it's. I mean, in real life, if you're if you're being intelligent about it, you're always bigger than the animal. You don't want to be lower than them because then they know they have the advantage. But again, if you're afraid, if you show fear, or you run from them, or you play hide and seek, or you're lower than them, then they're going to chase you, they're going to bite you, they're going to do all those things. And we know that you shouldn't do these things. And it's explained in the movie kind of briefly and to Mativo and things. Mm-hmm. But throughout the film, that's all the family does. And it gets the audience going, come on, you're not supposed to run. And and you're trying to, I've had people tell me that their friends have screamed at the screen and said, stop running, or look out behind you. And it's like, because they get so caught up in it. And we know we're not supposed to do it, but, that's our acting job.
Yeah. You're portraying an untrained family.
Yes, we were portraying an untrained, stupid family.
And so now, Tippy to this day has continued to dedicate her life to the cause of humane treatment to animals. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, after the film was done, I mean, the intention was that the budget was going to take not only all the filming done in post-production, but then have a budget to take care of the ranch and all of the animals till they died of old age. So they just retired when the movie was done. Well, because the movie went so far over budget and over time that there wasn't any money left over. So God bless Tippy, she took it on as her mission to take it on as a charitable organization. We learned through the filming, and now her message from her nonprofit organization, Shambhala.org, and the Roar Foundation, is that they are wild animals and they shouldn't be with people. And this is completely wrong what we did. People should never do this. It's dangerous and stupid. So she's even passed a law in Congress called the Shambhala Act that stops the breeding of these animals. And so this is her goal in life, and that's why she doesn't talk about this film, because the board of directors of Shambhala said, and the Roar Foundation said, well, you can't promote this film. It's everything that we're against.
Although, to be fair, it does sort of paint that message quite clearly that you shouldn't do this.
I think it portrays the message that these are wild animals and you should never do this. So.
Now, back in the 70s, when you guys were acquiring lions for the production of this film, it's my understanding also that in like backs of magazines, you could order like buy a lion cub.
Yeah.
And then people would have a lion cub for 6 months and realize, oh my gosh, this is going to turn into a very dangerous animal.
I'd get calls and say, excuse me, are you the guy with the lion? Yes. And I said, well, I got this lion cub and it's about 5 months old and it clawed my kid. Would you take him? Because I think the kid's going to get eaten. This was a mistake. I said, do you think so? And so we would usually help out, but it was very easy back then. But at least that's kind of subsiding, and people are now starting to figure out it is really dangerous, but people still do it. I mean, there's still, you still hear 1 or 2 stories a year of stupid people that...
Now they're just referencing a...
Yes, so now this is where Togar shows up. And now the family's wet here, which bothers me to no end, because why are we wet? Well, what happened was we had a whole amphibious vehicle scene that we cut out.
Oh.
And so we escaped from the amphibious vehicle, but they cut that sequence out because the movie was just too much running and chasing. So now we're wet, but then we dry off a little bit quickly.
I just thought maybe you were sweating so much in all those close quarters.
So now Togar's come in, and he's going to, fight with all the lions, and also he's trying to eat us and kill us. So this is actually a friendly lion, but we put a female nearby off camera, and I'd hit the door and I'd say, I'm going to take your female away. And then he'd try to eat through because he wants to make sure that we all know that we shouldn't try to do that.
Yeah.
So that's why he would come through with such ferocity. But
and I'm no expert here, but I would have to assume that also heightens the danger of the situation by taunting the lion, by threatening to take the female away.
Well, yeah, you have to, because that's what you're trying to get, is because the lions just didn't take that much direction very well.
Yeah.
You couldn't say, okay, take a nice one, say, okay, I need you to be really ferocious right now. You had to make him ferocious. So then what happens is this is a very dangerous sequence and very intense, and it sometimes most people do understand it, but that when Robbie shows up, that he saves us, and the music adds a lot in the score. It's heroic music.
Right. He's much more clean looking.
Yes, and he's black maned. He was the darkest of all of our lions, so he really stands out. But Togar was also dark maned, but he had blood, so that's how you always differentiate the two.
So tell me more about this amphibious vehicle scene. Did you actually shoot it, or?
Oh, we shot the whole thing.
Okay.
We probably spent 5 weeks, and it was a 5-minute sequence, and I've got production stills that I'm going to probably publish or something, but it has the amphibious vehicle, but it was just too many repetitive, how many times can you run away? And so this was all shot in Southern California.
And you guys built all these huts?
Yeah, my brother built all those huts. We rented the whatever kind of Brahma bull, I think it was, or something. So he he's explaining to the guys, and these tigers, who've just kind of hung out, and Motivo's like, well, why do they keep coming with him? And so he explains they can't just abandon him this far away from the ranch. So now they're on their way still to the airport,
Yes.
and they don't know anything about us arriving. So this was actually my brother's house. This is on the property, and my brother was in charge of the flamingos. I was kind of in charge of the zebras also.
Where did the flamingos come from?
I don't know. We bought them
Oh,
somewhere.
just bought a
Yeah,
whole bunch of flamingos. All right.
and the storks, and we also had an African vulture, which we did a sequence with, which was cut out of the film. And I remember one day we were coming down this narrow canyon, and we're on our way to the house. So the family comes down, and Jerry and I get in a fight for no reason. We're cranky, it's hot, so we fight. And then everybody's on the ground, and Tippy gets involved. But so we're going down, and we're shooting this scene, and the vulture was my brother Joel was in charge of the vulture, and he has him tied off with fishing wire, monofilament, to a stake. Well, the vulture has a very big wingspan, like 6 feet. This vulture takes off, breaks the monofilament, and flies away. So we're filming, and we're watching this African vulture fly away, and we've got like 90 crew people, and we go, okay, cut. Everybody followed the bird. So we stopped filming for 2 days because you get in a lot of trouble if you release non-indigenous animals into California. Fish and Game does not like African vultures breeding with whoever they're going to vote. And the thing was spotted in Malibu, but we never got him back.
No. There's no legend, no.
No, not that I know of. We also used to, the lions and tigers used to get loose a lot, every so often. And one day, a lioness, somebody hit a fence with a truck and didn't want to get fired, so he didn't tell anybody. There was a big hole in the fence, and so a lioness got out, and we had to stop filming for 3 days. And we had the whole crew. This is back before there were a lot of communication. And so we're on CB radios, but we don't want anybody to know that we've lost one of them. And so I told everybody, I said, so we're location scouting is what the key word was. And you said, I think I found the perfect location. And if you found the perfect location, that meant that you found her. Oh, by the way, this is Africa. But so I remember I wound up, I rented a helicopter for 3 days. And I was in the helicopter studying and flying around. And on the morning of the third day, the police found out that a lion got loose. And so the police chopper is communicating with my pilot. And the police go, well, who's in charge over there? And the pilot goes, hey, yeah, John, you got a call. So I was leaning out of the helicopter. And so I keyed my mic, which is bad because of the rotor blade. He almost blew the eardrums out of the cop. He goes, get back in the helicopter. So I leaned back in the helicopter. I talked to him. He goes, you got a loose lion? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, well, and so like 15 minutes later, my neighbor calls the ranch, and then they communicate to me, and they said, she says, if you guys lost a lion, I've got a horse here with 4 claw marks that are pretty recent. So I landed the helicopter. I had the helicopter land over there, and I found her like 15 minutes later.
You found the perfect location.
And then the cops landed, and so I was talking to the cops, and then they said, listen, could you do us a favor? We don't want it to get out that there was a loose lion, so can we keep this quiet? And I went, oh, okay.
Well, how many neighbors did you have, and how many people knew?
They were pretty far away. Oh, everybody knew.
Everybody knew what you were doing.
And
Yeah.
2 of our almost immediate neighbors both had lions and tigers and bears. They were there were a lot of animal places out there because it was licensed and legal out there if you had permits.
Now, there's a lot of photos floating out there from the Beverly Hills days, and also the filming of this with you guys sleeping with lions. Was that a pretty common thing for you guys to sleep with the lions?
Well, yeah, that's where you build trust. So we always encouraged everybody, and you tried to raise them separately so that they didn't get a pride mentality, because then they would gravitate towards possibly being more wild. Now, again, we didn't know what we were doing. This is experiment and hit and miss, and the result of what you did when they were cubs, you might not learn until 4 years later. And then if you because we did an experiment that ended poorly. We had 4 cubs that were all born, in the same litter, and I would take one home every night with me, and then I'd take it back. And so every 4th night, but so only 25% of the time at night were they with a human. And all during the day, they were with their mother and the other cats. those 4 cats, when they got to be about 2.5 years old, I don't know if it's in the movie. I'll have to see if I'll remember it. But these 3 lionesses, they were only about 250, 300 pounds. They ganged up on me. And these are like little things. I'm used to like 700-pound tigers. I'm not afraid of these 200 pounds. My character is afraid, but I'm not afraid. But these things got me down on the ground, and I'm like hitting them, and I was that was probably. I mean, I wasn't afraid of dying, that, but I got a lot of claws and shit out of that. That was probably one of the worst that I got that I didn't go to the hospital for. Because they turned out to be kind of wild.
So, you mentioned one of the worst that you got. How often did you get injured? How often was it common to have an injury? Every day, every week, every month, or?
Well, I mean, I the number that you used in the trailer, no animals were harmed, but 70 people. Well, that number is how many people went to the hospital. Unless you went to the hospital, it didn't count as an injury.
Okay.
Because if I could fix it, and a lot of my bites and claws and things, I just hydrogen peroxide and butterfly bandages and some gauze, and the hospital just took too long, and usually it was stupid.
Well, talk about this a little bit, because this kind of blows my mind. I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, this is one of the scenes. We actually, Steve and Rick, the 2 guys that got mauled, the poachers, they spent a lot of time teaching these lions, not to jump out of the car when it's moving, but tigers are typically very skittish and afraid of these kind of situations. But one of these was Nicky. That's Nicky right there. He's my favorite tiger. I raised him from 10 pounds, and like maybe even 5 pounds and 2 weeks old. And because he was blind in one eye, he had baby cataracts, and they operated him. So he was blind in one eye, and he wasn't going to have depth perception. So what I did with him from very little is I put him in situations that I would never put any of the other cats in. I would ride with him in my car all the time. I would have him on the tractor, on the bulldozer with me. And so he wasn't afraid, because I knew that when he grew up, he was going to have a disadvantage. So he was fearless. So he rode in the car great. Gregory, when he saw that Nicky was riding in the car, Gregory learned pretty quickly, because, they would get meat when they were riding in the car. They kind of liked it, so that was a bit of prep. Now this is sped up, so Dad's not driving this fast. And then, but the tigers never tried to jump out. They just knew it was safer to stay in there,
They seem to be having a good time.
Yeah, they do. They getting in the front seat, called shotgun,
They know that they should not run. You should have sent them a list of rules and regulations before.
So Dad's like desperate, because Mativo was saying your family's eating them. I mean, they're eating your family. So Dad's like scared, because now it is, it's daytime. It's pretty scary. You don't know what happened.
Poor Leonard.
How often are lions and tigers together like this? Is this fairly unique?
Yes, because, yes and no, but in the wilds, they're not indigenous to the same area, so it's never happens. There are some people, but never to this extent, because nobody's ever had this many animals and never this many large groups.
Did you guys have to treat any of this equipment, like the radio, the suitcase, the sofas, or are they just naturally going to tear stuff like that apart when they find it?
Oh, you give them something new, they tear it apart. I love this scene, because this cat's so happy he got a helmet, but he can't see anything. So if you watch closely, he's walking around. He's not giving this helmet up. And that was what made the photography really hard, because you didn't get focus marks, and you didn't know what was going to happen. So you had to be very flexible. So that dates the film, but we can fix that. This cub was raised in the city. I forgot who raised her, but there was a skateboard in the backyard. The cat taught itself how to ride a skateboard, and Tippy loved this scene. And we tried to film it, and we didn't get it one day. And Dad said, we're too far behind. We can live without that. And that was the one time Tippy came to a couple of us crew guys and said, will you guys give up your day off? And can we film? I really, really want the skateboarding scene in here. And there was like 20 of us did. We didn't have anything better to do. So it was like, that was a good time if Dad wasn't there, and it was just kind of a relaxed situation. So we all took on our day off on our Sunday. We filmed the lion. So that's Tippy's scene.
Awesome. Well played,
And it's
Tippy.
very cute.
Yes, great.
Now, think of what kind of stupid family brings a football helmet, a skateboard, and those various other things, but nobody ever seems to question, because clearly the family's dumb. I love this shot. He's
Stuck on his tooth.
yeah, he cannot get that thing off. Oh, so now the family's coming down the stairs. This is now when we filmed this sequence in the beginning. This isn't actually. This was shot a year or two later.
Okay.
So this is coming up, and I'll explain where Jan gets bitten. So now the family comes down. We get in the boat, which is very stupid because clearly the boat's sinking, and we get in a sinking boat. But this was the worst tiger fight I've ever seen. I mean, it was this. It's a lot more intense even than this is portrayed for when I was there.
It still looks pretty intense on
Yeah.
screen right now.
So now the family's rowing away, and you'll see the shot coming up that all these lions are running down to chase him. Jan was in a pit that we dug, and because all the cameras were filming and we camouflaged the cameras, so Jan was there, and the lionesses would jump over him, and he panned over to when the last lioness jumped over him, he panned over to get the family in the rowboat, and they saw the green parachute that was disguising him move and turn around and bit him in the head, and he got 200 stitches in the head. And I had a football helmet for him to protect him, but he didn't want to wear it. And so he had 200 stitches. We sent him off to the hospital. Now, this scene, the reason the lion keeps pulling me back like this,
Yeah,
that's the one that gave me 56 stitches in the head, and it took 6 guys 25 minutes to get the lion off me.
He wants you back.
wants to finish it. And we shot this scene for 4 days, and you could see him. He's like, times he's got his mouth open. He's trying to bite me. And so...
Did you know he was going to keep on pulling the boat back to you, or is that just an improvisational moment?
We figured it out after the first 3 takes.
Okay.
So we shot it for 4 days. And the water was so cold. I remember we were shooting this in the beginning of December. And, like it snows out there in December. The water must have been like 62 degrees or something. They were worried about hypothermia and all this other. And we never had a medic there.
There was never a medic on site?
Wasn't in the budget.
I guess you guys all got
There was
pretty
one of our
adept
gaffers used to do some, but he was only there for about a year. I used to do a lot of it, but I usually did veterinarian work.
Where was the closest hospital?
About 45 minutes away. Oh, so now we're coming up, because we shot this scene early. You could almost see Patsy in that shot. That's Melanie. We reshot that. But we're going to cut around to a wide shot in a second. If you watch very closely, you have to probably freeze frame it on the DVD. So it's going to be on the right. So that's Patsy there, but that's not the one I'm talking about, because the one is around that one. That's Patsy. That's the one that you most clearly see. It is not Melanie,
Okay.
or at least I can clearly see it's not Melanie.
Now, tell us a little bit about this boat scene. Was this expected, or?
But yeah, because what we tried to do is we tried to plan things that the animals would typically do. Like, we learned that tigers like chasing motorcycles, elephants like chasing motorcycles, lions liked it. They love to chase people. They like the hide and seek. They'll chase you. But there was I was going home one afternoon, and I ran out of gas in my pickup truck, and I was hitchhiking. There's Patsy again. And this guy picked me up, and he says, "Hey, do you want me to drive you to the gas station, get you some gas?" I said, "Oh, that'd be great," because it's the opposite direction. I wanted to repay the favor. So I said, "Oh, this is where Tippy got her leg crushed. She is actually hanging upside down, and we've reversed the film, so it looks like she was thrown up, but she was actually dropping down, and her leg was crushed between the trunk and the tusk, and she got black gangrene." And there's a very famous picture in the National Enquirer in the late 70s. and it's the center fold out, and Tippy is hanging upside down with her leg pinned in between his trunk and his tusk. I'm trying to free her. And her leg, she was getting her leg crushed when she was up on top, and it hurt so bad, and she was screaming bloody murder. I'm yelling for help. Everybody thought we were doing a good job of acting. And then finally, just Tippy was in so much pain, she dropped. And then when they saw her hanging upside down, they came in and we were able to stop it. Yeah, that was pretty bad for her.
You were talking about the
this guy, and I said, hey, I want to return the favor. I said, hey, I got this ranch with some lions. You want to go for a tour? So he took him up there, and it turns out that he recycled aluminum. And I had this camper shell that I bought when I bought the truck, and it was damaged. So I said, do you want this aluminum? And he said, yeah. But he had a small pickup truck. He says, it's too big. I said, well, let's make it smaller. I could run over it with the tractor. But I said, I said, come on. I'd never done this, but I figured I'd let the elephant step on it. And so we threw it over to the elephant. I made sure there's no glass or anything. And so Timbo starts, he kind of headbutts it a little bit, and then he kicks it a little bit, and it's really light, and it flies a little bit. So he picks it up, and he can throw it up in the air, and then he headbutts it, and he was going to town. His ears are flapping, and his musk is running. He's having a good old time. And my father drives up, and I go, oh, shit, I'm in trouble. And Dad comes down, and he goes, that's great. He says, because the elephant, it's big. The thing was bigger than the elephant, but he's able to throw it higher than him. So Dad goes, we should write that into the script. So that's why it's an aluminum boat, and that's why he kicked it.
And where did you guys get the elephant in the first place?
I think he came from Canada.
Rescue animal?
No, I think we bought him. No, I'm sure we bought him. And then we had a second one, Cora, that we got from a circus. And then it turns out later on, and I don't, a lot of this stuff sold, but it turns out that they were both from the same herd in Africa. They were related.
Oh, wow.
And we found that out 20 years later. It's kind of cute.
And you do most of the intense motorcycle work in this film. And,
yeah, we all kind of had to do our own stunts because, the lions wouldn't do the same action, and that was not planned.
You were also mentioning that there's a couple different iterations of the motorcycle, and this one has kind of close-in handlebars. You want to talk about that modification?
These handlebars are the ones that are meant in a couple minutes. You'll see I ride up the ramps, and the handlebars had to be set in because the ramp wasn't quite wide enough, which made it very difficult to steer because the further out it's better to control the bike. And then if you watch really closely in this scene right here, you see on the right side of the bike, that's an Aeroflex. So there's a camera rigged, so the POV shot is from the camera, but because we didn't want to have to keep reshooting it. So you see the camp, but it's black, so you don't think anything about it. You're watching the lions, but so we were actually shooting. You're doing the stunts, and the camera wasn't on in that shot. But so on this shot, I go up, I see Timbo. I turn around, and this shot, Jan's handheld here, and then I'm supposed to.
Is he riding the elephant?
Yeah, he's riding the elephant, handheld. So the lion's chasing me. I told my father, I said, because of that shot, they used a different take. There was one take where I said, well, Cora was getting too close to the tree, and I said, I need to be able to have room. So I said, could you put her on a leg chain and hold her back? And then when I came around the corner, she was right on the tree, and I'm like, there's practically no room to get there. And he would always do stuff like that, and he'd say, oh no, it'll be fine, and then it wasn't fine. And then if you watch this here, the bike, I did dump the bike, and then they write it into the script. And if you watch very closely, I get bitten a lot. Not bitten, but nipped at. Mm-hmm. And it hurts when they nip at you. And they also liked biting the bike. And so this is where the handlebars had to be modified, or we needed to make sure that... and the house, this sequence was obviously designed in the design of the house. So they love chasing the motorcycle. And then this was actually very easy. The only thing that some friends of mine that told me, I told them what I was doing, they said, make sure you're not riding the bike. Don't land on the bike. Because the lake wasn't very deep, and if you landed on the bike, it would really hurt you in the crotch.
Well, how deep is that water that you're jumping from 30 feet off of a roof?
4.5, 5 feet. But it was like muddy, so it wasn't real. It wasn't like a concrete, you know. Oh, so this is a great sequence. But Boomer, this cat, I loved. Boomer was like practically everybody's favorite, but Ear's back again, so you know he's having a good time. And
you want to talk about the safe word?
Well, yeah. So the safe word is Noel. That was my father's name, and so Tippy and you know I call him Dad, but everybody else call him Noel. So in this, so you hear Melanie right here. If you pay close attention, she's really her hair's getting. She says no, Noel, and then he didn't stop. He didn't stop taking. So we didn't think the safe word meant anything. But then I was always close by when, you know, and especially Tippy and Melanie would occasionally, if they were doing scenes without me or something, you know, we all kind of watched out for each other because the family, we were on our own for the most part. And so we'd say, hey, listen, would you be nearby just in case? Because you couldn't count on Dad to save us or interrupt the take. And then this is stupid. You can see me, I'm fighting him. I'm being an animal trainer down there. And then I kept asking, I said, you can't possibly see me hiding underneath the stove. I said, can we do this without me? And they go, no, we might see a bit of your sleeve. So I'm hiding under there, and they're biting me. And, you know, like I'm elbowing them and trying to stay in character, but it hurt a lot. And it's such a shame that it's just my perspective. Jerry, Tippy, and Melanie would all have their own perspectives because we all had dangerous things in our own rights.
Sure.
But, you know, Tippy and Melanie don't want to. I think they would prefer to. This movie still gives me nightmares, and maybe it still does to them, and they're not willing to relive it. And I guess I'm stupid enough to be willing to relive it, because I just think that this should be shared.
Well, I'm going to go back to Jan de Bont. So he had the incident where he got bit, got 200 stitches, but then he came back. So when he came back, were there more safety precautions for him for the rest of the shoot? How much more shooting was left?
Well, he got bitten 3 weeks in, and it was 5 years of filming, so he was there for 5 years. And no, there was nothing different that changed. You know, I don't think I don't remember Jan ever putting that helmet on. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but if I'd gotten that, and I'd have worn that helmet a lot more. But it was really hot out there, so I don't blame him. Yeah, there were a lot of things in hindsight. Well, in hindsight, we would never make the movie. This movie should never be made, should have been made. But it's done. It is what it is. And this is something that'll probably be playing for years and years. And so this was my stupid idea, to hide in the barrel full of water, which I thought was kind of nice because it was 110 degrees and it would be cool. But I didn't anticipate the 4 days that I would be doing the shooting. And the barrel was up on the roof, and we'd cover it and then have the lions up there so they would really thirsty. And we'd stop filming for an hour, we'd go to shoot something else, then we'd go back and shoot it. But all of the crew was dipping their handkerchiefs in and wrapping around their necks, so you got like sweaty. The water was terrible. But so I'd be underwater, and I had asked that the back of my head be protected, because you don't want to start turning around. So the back of my head's protected. And so what I would do is I would look up to see which lions were there. And if the lions were nice lions, I would come up really gently, and then I would react with the lions, and I'd act afraid, and they got great footage. And then I would quietly duck down. I'd hold my breath just for a second. I'd come up. I'd give them a number of takes. But then sometimes when I was underneath, and I looked up and I saw bad lions, I would hold my breath and hold my breath and hold my breath. And I know I'm wasting a lot of film. And then when I finally ran out of air, if there were still bad lions, I would pop up really fast. And then I'd shock them, and they'd jump back a couple inches, and then they'd come to get me. But then I was down hiding underneath again. My father yelled at me once. He goes, "You smoke 2 packs." I used to smoke. I can't believe I ever did that. He said, "You smoke 2 packs a day. How can you hold your breath for so long?" I said, "Well, life and death, you'd be surprised how long you can hold your breath. If you think there's 2 lions that are going to bite you, I bet you could hold your breath for 2 minutes."
it really is incredible the amount of, like even Tippi Hedren doing her own stunts in all these sequences is it's pretty staggering.
Yeah.
Are these nice lines?
Yeah, those are good lines. Well, I can't tell from that shot, and because I'm not in it, if I'm in it and there's lions lapping up water. It's funny though, if you watch really closely, this is an interesting fact. Lions, when they lick, their tongue goes up and they scoop the water up and flick it up underneath. Mm-hmm. If you watch closely. So this is a great scene. I don't know. I think Dad. I don't know why Dad was so. Guess we all messed with him a lot or something. We must have done something wrong to him. But it's a great scene and it gets a lot of good laughs. So.
And so I remember reading in Tippi's book about the filming of the honey sequence that you had not tested that idea before, and she was really, really scared of this particular sequence because, obviously you've got a big cat that's going to be coming very close to your face.
Well, we at least didn't use lions and tigers. We used leopards and I think a cheetah in that scene, so they were smaller.
Did you actually roll off of the roof in that barrel?
Yeah, what we did is when I rolled off, I think we did it from the second floor because you only needed part of it, and it was just too dangerous to be in the barrel. But now there's a shot that we shot on the shore where the tusk comes through we had a phony tusk and it came through, but it broke my tooth. The tusk came through because it was phony, but and we thought it was controlled, but.
Was there any point in the filming where you said, "I just can't do it. I gotta get out of here. I can't finish this movie"?
Oh, I think when the flood happened, I think we were all kind of thinking that maybe we should just figure out if we could cut together what we had, but we needed another 5%. But yeah, there were all times that we just thought that it was too much and we had pushed our luck, but nobody else could take over for us, so we had to finish our role. See, these are all small cats.
Yeah, small cats.
I mean, not that a leopard or a black leopard and a jaguar and a cheetah aren't dangerous. So, by no means was it intelligent or safe, but at least it wasn't a tiger.
Well, it was a good slapstick moment anyway. I'm glad it turned out okay.
Tippi did these moments. She has some great pieces in the film. Look what the cat dragged in and other things, and so the sequence coming up was really, really hard to do. So now the family is, we're like really, really tired. We haven't had any sleep, even though there was a night, but we didn't sleep well. So we figured out that there's this hospital. It was the hospital for the cats in the film, and it's over across by the water wheel. And so we're going to finally get away from when we're in a safe area with the lions, we think. And once it's set up, I'll explain because it comes up in a second. That it was one of the hardest scenes to do, and we tried shooting it at night for about 3 nights, and then we tried shooting in the day because it involves us sleeping and about 12 lions and tigers sleeping with us. Mm-hmm. Well, they typically, to get all of them, we could fake sleeping, but to get all of them to sleep, well, they weren't sleeping at night. So then we did it for a couple of days, and we finally figured out that when it was 120 degrees in there, and then you turn movie lights on, it was about 140, that after about an hour, they finally fell asleep once. But nobody could make a sound because you'd wake them up. And so you didn't know when to open your eyes and look and pretend, so if you blew the take, you blew 7 days of filming. So I think Dad finally signaled one of us and said, "Okay, get up." So we're all asleep. We don't know that these lions, so they figured out how to get to this area. We think it's safe, obviously.
What are the sleeping habits of lions normally? Like if this were truly a pride of lions living in this house.
Typically, they would they sleep during the day because really, if it's hot, they'll sleep, and then they'll. But the females have to hunt during the day. They don't hunt too much at night, but they're very active during the nighttime and daytime. It's just because they nap throughout. So now, none of the animals, we would never, ever hurt any of our animals. And some of the sequence coming up, when you see these animals that look like they've been shot, once or twice a year, you would have to do blood samples. Mm-hmm. And typically about 80%, 85% of the cats, you couldn't draw blood unless you anesthetize them. Right. So it was time to do blood samples, so we would anesthetize them. And then right when they were like, just almost going out, I was up on the top and I just gently push them over and they'd roll down. It was, it's like 3-4 feet or something, and they roll down. And then there's a great shot coming up where this lioness looks up like, "What are you doing to me?" And it was because, and this tiger, it's like, what's going on? Well, they're stoned, I mean, they're being anesthetized. So it's that
spray paint.
Yeah, and a lot of phony blood. And so, like he's like, they can't even, because, and then like 5 minutes after this, you shave their leg and draw the blood. But, but no, we would never hurt any animals. And nor did we would never tranquilize an animal for a scene. You have to do it to draw blood. And that's, so we felt that that was the fairest way for anything to be portrayed. But right there, it's just, she's almost about to go out. Now, this sequence was all staged and planned and choreographed. These are the two guys that were the most knowledgeable. These were people that we hired away from Marineland USA or something.
Do you want to talk a bit about the score? We haven't really mentioned the score. The score's great, but apparently it's way more comprehensive, and there's a lot more to the score that we don't even get to see in the movie.
Well, the CD, I was talking to the composer a while back, and he said that I didn't really even know this, because when the film was done, because it was only supposed to take 9 months, after 5 years, I wanted to get out of there. So I didn't care about the CD. It didn't involve my acting. But he told me that there's 8 songs on there that aren't in the movie. So he wants me to just have he wanted us to do just the soundtrack with only the score. And so this is all phony stuff. And so he wants to remove the songs, and so we're still figuring out what to do with that. But
what was the grand idea for the 8 songs? Was this going to be a much more epic movie at one point?
I had never heard that until I talked to him about a month ago, and he said that Dad had stage shows around the world planned with dinosaurs and a Disney. Dad thought he was Disney. This is not Disney. I mean, this definitely is not Disney. I mean, I'm amazed, and I haven't seen it with American audiences yet, but in Australia and England, when I was there for the screenings, the audiences applaud and cheer when these guys get killed.
Yeah, it happens here in the States as well.
Oh, I haven't seen that much, but I mean, they really, and the audiences here in America laugh so much more for the last 15 minutes of the film than they did in any other country that I saw it with audiences. Because it was released everywhere in the world, but never in America. Right. And then you figured out how to get it in American theaters, which, I mean, how you figure that and how you market it, that's amazing.
40 plus years in the making. It's finally finding an audience here in the United States.
I played with my first lion when I was 13, our first interview with a lion. And 48 years later, I am now finally seeing it in theaters. So this is the scene where all of the cats are asleep. It took so long, and to get that many animals asleep, and then so that when the lion hits Jerry in the head, Jerry still hasn't. We've not gotten the cue, so we don't know when to wake up, and so we finally get the cue. But you've waited 7 shooting days, 3 nights and 4 days for this minute. So now we're trying to get up without waking any of them up. But the one that was right next to me, I woke her up because she had her paw on me, and I moved. So this is when we figured out we're stupid throughout the film, but now we're figuring out they could have killed us when we're asleep, so they must not be that bad. And they're jumping up, and now we're hugging them. So this is the transition. So now the roller coaster ride's kind of stopping, so you think. And that's Johnny. That's the one that I raised and named after me. And Tippy loved him. And again, laying down is bad, but she was perfectly fine with this because we thought he wasn't wild. Now, we would never do this again. We've figured it out, but he was a lot safer than any of the others. So now this is the happy go, and this is the scene where Melanie got clawed in the face. And so she was sitting on the ground, and it's in our loving moments, and it's the lighthearted thing. And Lioness came and clawed her from behind the face. And
after all the hour of complete insanity and danger, it happens here.
Yes. Now we shot it out of sequence, so this was probably in year 4 or something. But so it was. Now we're on the ground, so that's where.
I gotta say, watching this for the first time and seeing this sort of stop on a dime transformation for you guys to be completely at home and comfortable with the cats feels a little jarring, given the hour of chases and fear.
Right, but we knew that Dad lived with them.
Yeah.
So we were probably just doing something wrong.
Right.
But now we wake up and there's 12 of them that didn't bite us, and now they're all in. They're kind of calm, and so it's like, wow, this is kind of cool. But yes, it is kind of an unusual transition, very fast. But it had to happen at some point. And then the music, it did all those cues that everything's fine. Now that was the first tiger we ever got, Ivan. Ivan was afraid of little cubs. That's why that little cub could.
That's what's happening right there. He's actually
it's
afraid.
Like, I don't know why. Ivan was 700 pounds, really ferocious, but when it came to a cub, so much for the happy moments.
This also seems like a pretty treacherous moment for Tippy, being on this log and having the lions jump over top of her.
She got bitten in the back of the head doing this scene.
Okay.
I think that was in year 1, but so that's Robbie. That's a good lion. So we're not running. We're not afraid. But now Dad is kind of. Dad didn't chase Togar, but Togar wound up getting chased that direction. So this is, where the big transition. So this is the finish of Robbie in the house saving us.
Now, which of the lions? I'd heard rumor that some of the lions came from Anton LaVey. Is there any truth to that rumor?
I remember that they came from some satanic cult or something, and we called them the Wild Bunch, and nobody ever went in with them, and I couldn't figure out why we got them, but they were for breeding purposes only. And it wasn't until recently that when that name was mentioned that I Googled it and found out that and read a little bit about it. So yes, because when I Googled his name, the images of Tippy and Melanie and Jerry and I with the famous Life magazine shoot, that his name was tied to it. So I have to ask Tippy. I haven't got a chance to talk to her. And I love there's a life picture of this lion jumping over in between me and Tippy. And the lion, we had staged the thing. It was a full-grown lion, and the lion's like looking over the banister, and I'm feeding him meat to do that. And Life magazine guy goes, "Hey, I got to reload." And so I stopped feeding the lion. The lion looked at the chicken on the table. He jumps over on the. Tippy had got candles lit and crystal and everything. He hits that table, breaks it, slides off the table, parts me and Tippy. Just so that was the end of the shoot. I leaned down and got a piece of chicken and said, "Okay, I'm gone."
That is one of my favorite photos of all time.
I love that picture. So this is now once Robbie beat Togar, and that's all established. Now it's supposedly all perfect.
Don't worry. I actually really love the ending note. You know, the song that comes in, the montage. It kinda,
Yeah,
it really does
it-
end on a nice, beautiful
you
moment.
get 10 minutes to really appreciate the grandeur of the animals and the fact that we think people and animals can coexist, but that it's the loving and it's the way that we lived with them for many years,
Yeah.
and it wasn't what our character was. So for us, we enjoyed that part the most.
And it also sort of explains the fact that only people who have immersed themselves for a decade or more with these lines could possibly have pulled this off. So it's sort of like a curtain call bow to me.
Yeah. Even Mativo, when the scene coming up, he's even enjoying it, and then
Come on this way. Listen, I have a surprise for you.
Boy, are we glad to see you.
What are y'all doing? Where are my clothes? Oh, no. What happened? Oh, Jerry. Get back. Swim the line. You all want to meet? We already met him.
So clearly we're letting the lions jump up on us. We've adjusted. Dad's there, so we feel safe, But this is the way that we all spend our years of prep.
Yeah.
They would always jump and hug, and I mean, it should never be done. But
Can you
Togar is accepted. They're cleaning the blood off of him. It's one big happy family. The music cues to the lovely songs, and
Is there any backstory to this particular song?
not that I know of.
It kind of sticks in my head. I like
Yeah,
this song.
Eden. It's like this is life couldn't get better than this, especially in comparison to what it was 20 minutes ago.
Now I know part of the
Now, I got to interrupt. So this we shot we shot this before we started really filming the movie, because the black guy in this isn't Mativo. He was the guy that we were gonna use, and then we filmed this like 4 months earlier as a test to try to raise money. So this is the youngest anybody was. Melanie's in this scene, and so she had done the test, but then decided not to do the movie, and Patsy was in there. But this is when that's the youngest she was. And you can barely see this guy named Zakes Mackay, and he was in the committee scene with the flamingos.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in the movie, but he was originally going
That's
to play
his arm,
Mativo's part. No, now that's Mativo.
That's Mativo, okay.
But Mativo, Zakes Mackay took another job, and then so we got Mativo.
Isn't it time?
So that's like, I mean,
Rise and believe.
that's Boomer again, one of our favorite.
Look at the world. Can it really have been so deceived? Wait.
But you can still see Tippy's kind of putting her hand up, because
Sure.
these are things that when you live with lions and tigers, there's certain things, and I can tell gesture. That's our Tigon, which is the first one we ever had, which is the father's a tiger, the mother's a lion.
Tell me now.
But you can see certain things that animal people do, and it's just subtle things that nobody knows unless you really know how to deal with animals. And I can spot every scene, and I can tell it with other people. I can tell if you're afraid of an animal just the way that you're handling yourselves. I know when an animal's going to bite you, because they gather themselves, and they've got tells that you can spot if you look closely. Not always. Sometimes they'll bite for no reason, and it didn't give you a clue. But so that's Gary. That was the one that was very talkative in the beginning.
Did you guys live in the house, or were there separate quarters? I mean,
Separate quarters, but I lived in that house for the first 3 months that I lived there, because I was still fixing up a permanent place to live there. So I remember Gunther Gable Williams, I saw him saying that he had a leopard. He did this with a leopard. He says, "I'm the only guy in the world that can do this. This is the only leopard you can do it with." Buster would do that with anybody that was strong enough to pick him up.
including Tippy.
Yeah, Buster was great. He was the first leopard we ever got. I remember we were so afraid because, so when we first got him out of his holding cage, we put him out in the big area in the house, and there were 4 of us standing around waiting in the corners to see if he was going to come bite us, and he just wandered around and rubbed by us and stuff. And then after 2 hours, we figured out nothing's going to happen. Then you sit down, and he was just, but you don't know. You got to, there's that it's kind of like, you know, when you've got an icebreaker and you approach somebody at a party and you don't know how it's going to go. Well, it's just a little more intense when it's a cat with all its claws, and they're just not quite as, at least when a woman turns you down and she doesn't want to talk to you, she just walks away, you know, they bite you or claw you or something, you know.
Now I know that Noel passed away, I think in 2010.
2010, yeah.
Yeah. Was he still active and around big cats after the filming of the movie?
Well, he stayed in my house for a while, but Dad and Tippy divorced right after the movie. And then he did for a couple of years, but then it was uncomfortable and awkward, so he moved away. And you know, and even when Tippy changed the rules and we figured out that they're wild animals and you shouldn't play with them, nobody was allowed to be with him again. As I kind of stopped going out there nearly as much as I used to, because it's kind of like if you've been able to drive a Ferrari all your life and then one day somebody says, okay, not only can you no longer drive the Ferrari, you can't touch the Ferrari, and the general public has to be behind this fence, and that's where you get to be. So if you see the Lions got, it says written and directed by Noel Marshall and Friends, the animals are always given writing credit because they did dictate a lot of the storyline.
Can you talk a little bit about Ted Cassidy? I'm a huge fan of him as a character actor. It's just funny to see him in the additional script material.
Well, Ted was a business client of my father's, and Dad was his business manager and a family friend. And Ted was a writer also, and he played Lurch in the Addams Family, but he worked with Dad on the original script. He passed away when we were in Africa, and so we actually ended filming in Africa a couple days early to get back for the service. But so he's just honored here, even though he passed away. Never saw the film.
Got it. Well, I must say, I am such a massive fan of this movie. I hope it finds a strong audience in the United States. It's like no other. I realize that it's a complex relationship that some of the folks have with the film, but it's undeniable that this is something that is incredible that was accomplished, that nobody else has come anywhere close to this. So.
Oh, and nobody ever will. It was dangerous and stupid to do it, and I'm so glad it sat just dormant for so many years, and when Olive Films picked it up for the Blu-ray and you picked it up for theatrical, I would never, when my son sent me an email and said, Dad, Draft House Films is distributing Roar in theaters, and I went, what's a Draft House? And because I'm a little bit older than your normal audience that you market to, and it's just an amazing roller coaster ride ever since then. So thank you so much for really figuring this out and getting it out to the people, because I think that once it's out there, everybody is going to tell everybody else, whether they think the story is dumb and the plot's weak and the acting. I don't care about any of those things. You will never see people and animals like this ever again. And if there's every animal lover in the world's going to want to see this, and so it'll probably be watched. It'll be cited for 100 years as what you shouldn't do with lions and tigers.
And I think it deserves a place among the most important, the most effective white knuckle thrillers that's ever been made. So that's my take on it. And these the final credits at the end still stand true today. I think it still has a strong message, and I hope that this message of conservation and preservation of wild animals actually does shine.
We were well ahead of our time, and it's even more important now, and I think we're making progress, but we still need to do a lot more.
Well, John, it has been a pleasure talking with you this afternoon, and I wish you all the best in all your projects ahead.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.